Super Troopers 2 is directed by Jay Candish, or
I can never say his last name.
I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry. It's Broken Lizard.
Yeah.
It's their sequel to the cult classic Super Troopers that came out in 2001.
Yeah, 17 years in the making.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much. And this film is a sequel to the first one, and you features the 5 Broken Lizards group who return to play their characters from the first film, who were highway patrolmen, who are basically now no longer cops because of
construction workers.
They're now construction workers because of incidents that happened in the first film and some other stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, not spoiler.
Not spoiler. Yeah. But they basically get called by their boss, played by Brian Cox, to get a chance to go to Canada for a job offering.
Well, they go into they do this thing where pretty much this part of a border, and it's pretty. This ain't a spoiler. It's really in the trailers. There's a part of Vermont which was in Canada, but apparently it's owned by the United States. They did a thing where they went back to old days where they used to mark borders back in the day, and found out that the markings went more deeper into Canada, and it's just pretty much one town, and they're training to turn this town into the United States. And they were the first choices of cops to put a department in there.
Yeah.
So they thought about getting them on, so...
Yeah, and so they get a chance to go back there, and along the way they meet these other highway patrol, or they meet these Mounties, they call them.
In Canada.
The police. These other officers, and they also meet the mayor of the town, who's played by Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
Which I kind of knew he was in it, but it was good seeing him back in a movie again.
And that one girl, I cannot remember her name.
I remember.
She's really hot.
Yeah, it's that girl from, if you remember, You Don't Mess with the Zohan, she was in that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's some backstory for you. Now, I actually really enjoy a lot of the Broken Lizards film because ever since I saw the first Super Troopers, I've found that movie to be such a hilarious cult classic, and even today, it still to me holds up. Like,
yeah, it does. It still holds up, and it was. I have that with Beer Fest as my favorite. I like pretty much all their work, you know. I don't count really whatchamacallit.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard, much of that. But I don't think I really disliked anything they've ever done.
Yeah, Dukes of Hazzard would be probably the only one they did that I didn't like, but I don't really consider that their movie necessarily.
Because that was more of
a studio,
major studio, and they're not
kind
major.
Of film, and that didn't really have them as the main characters. Yeah. So the other ones, I loved Beer Fest. Yes. I loved Club Dread, of course, and I haven't seen Slam and Salmon.
I find that to be highly underrated. Like, a lot of people out there that are even big fans of the Broken Lizard have not, really got a chance to watch that. That's how low end it went, but man, that was a pretty solid movie, man.
I bet. I mean, I've heard about it. I just never got a chance to watch it.
Funny as hell.
But it got me curious with this one because for a while I was hearing they were going to do a Super Troopers 2, and I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I believe I was hearing something about them wanting to do a prequel. Like, the original idea they had in mind was they were going to do it to where they've played their fathers of their group. But that later changed because they decided to do a sequel. Yeah. And luckily, this actually got made because this was actually funded by Kickstarter or I think it was either that or Indiegogo. It was Kickstarter by the fans. The fans actually paid them to get this film made, and it was actually pretty cool that they did that. And I'm glad it was really great seeing these guys all come back together.
I like when I see a classic nostalgia come back, like we got with Dumb and Dumber and
Bad Santa,
not Zoolander.
Bad Santa.
Yeah, Bad Santa was a good one. Don't talk about Zoolander 2. Fuck that movie.
Yeah,
that was a piece of shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but
majority of the time it's cool. They'll never top first ones, but they always. Some of them came back and they're doable.
Yeah. And so it actually got me curious how this one would turn out. And I gotta say that I did like this film, but it is once again much like a lot of other comedy sequels. It's nowhere near as great as the
classic,
first one.
Yeah, the first one.
The first one it
was nostalgic, cool to see. I expected a little bit more out of it, and we'll get into our pros and cons. I find it average good, but I was also a little let down on some things.
I can hear that.
Yeah, but I'll get into it here in a second. But wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it was actually decent. And to get my pros out of the way, once again, I enjoy all the Broken Lizards group.
Yes.
You know, Jay, Eric, the guy who plays Farva, Steve, and all them. They all have all fantastic chemistry, and their characters are always a blast to watch. And the two that really stick out for me is Farva and the other one.
See, I'm a little different on that, but
it's him and Thorny's my favorite. But
I always like Brian Cox.
Yeah,
but
Brian Cox.
They really underused him a lot in this one, but he was still funny. I like the shorter guy. He's pretty funny.
Oh, Foster.
Foster, yeah, he's one.
No, wait, Foster's the other guy, the curly-haired one.
Yeah, see, I can't remember get him all.
Okay,
but the shorter guy, he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, he's always my favorite.
And then you also, but basically along the way too, like to get my other pros out of the way, the humor is very great in this film for the majority of the time, but it can be hit and miss. To get the humor I do like is the stuff where they're doing drugs and stuff, because basically the plot, not going to spoil a thing, but it does pretty much kind of rehash the first one, because once again in this film they're looking for someone who's smuggling drugs in from the United States into Canada, or vice versa, whichever one.
Canada, and they're trying to get in the United States.
And so they find out who it is. But along the way, there's a part where they actually end up taking drugs. And this scene right here is one of the biggest highlights, because it shows everyone on drugs and shit.
And each one of them's taking a drug. Like, one's got like Midol or some shit, and the other one's kind of got
hormones.
Yeah, that's the hormone, the Midol one.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got the other one,
steroids.
Like acid and steroids. One's equivalent to meth.
Yeah.
And they all took separate different drugs.
And one's on acid.
The one where Brian Cox said, "You listen to me? God damn it. You don't listen to me." And it's the shorter guy. He's like, woo, woo, and he sees him as a Chinese dude. Yeah. It's a funny scene. You'll love it. That was a good part. And then the part where that one Mountie called him a something.
Oh, yeah. I can't say it on here because it might sound a little
it might sound like the real word.
Yeah, I won't say it, but it was cracking me up.
Yeah, and he's like, "What do you call me?"
Yeah. So that was funny, and plus it was also funny with the little remarks they have when they're bantering with the fucking Mountie cops at the beginning. I thought that worked.
I did like that was William Sasso too.
I think it was. Will Sasso from Mad TV
and Three Stooges. And I could tell by the way he acted. He did like a thing that reminded me of what he did with Curly, and that's why I was like, that's Will Sasso.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, he plays kind of like this. Like, he's Canadian French, but he kind of felt like a Russian-y type guy.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He did.
But he was funny as he was funny.
He was great, and plus I also liked the way that the film was trying to spin on some new jokes that weren't on the first one, because this one they do have jokes that are pretty much rehashed in the first one, but they don't do it too much like
this one's more of America versus Canada.
Yeah,
insult.
Yeah, and that'll be a con later, because I do kind of have a problem with that at parts, because it can be hit and miss.
Because it can be overdone.
Yeah, but for the most part, I was still laughing along with what was happening, and most of the humor that comes to play is a lot of the dick and sex jokes that come with it. Like a lot of the times when Farva, at the beginning, when he was like talking shit to him, saying all the dick jokes and stuff. Those at the beginning and everything, it was funny. But then that's later when we get to our cons.
All right, but, so I'm gonna get in my cons right now.
Well, the other pro is it was also cool seeing some of the other people come back from the other films.
Yeah.
Like you've seen the trailer.
Oh yeah, they
actually bring back that one guy who
even the smallest amount of people that were in the first one, they brought back like the real actors.
Like if you remember the guy got pulled over in the first one when they're doing the meowing.
Yeah,
that guy actually comes back, and then you also got the Foster's girlfriend from the first one as well. She comes back.
Yeah,
and then just overall, I still had a lot of fun with a lot of seeing these characters and letting them do their thing. Yeah. Now here's where we get to our cons. Now, as much as I was laughing along with the film, I can say that the humor can get pretty loathsome in parts.
Yeah,
mainly I had
overdone. Yeah, like they do what irritate me the most about the some of the jokes, even though some of them are really like piss and shit jokes that just I didn't really care for. I didn't like how this one had a lot of issues with repeating, rinse and repeat. Like we got the meow, 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 or the ramrod,
goal.
but they seem to overdo it a lot.
Yeah,
because that was irritating.
Well, and that's also rehashing jokes from the first one too. So that was also a con I do have, because they don't use as much like some other comedy sequels do, where they're just rehashing shit from the first film. They don't do it a whole lot, but when they do, it's like, okay, that we already saw that joke in the first film. So, and also one of my biggest cons with the humor is the Canadian stereotypes can get very annoying.
Both of them, they can be overly done. Yeah,
because if you ever see that, well, here's another bad comparison. But if you ever seen Yoga Hosers, the one Kevin Smith did, that film was also using that same kind of humor type, where they're doing nothing but Canadian stereotypes,
talking shit,
saying sorry about that and all that shit. It can be very overdone, and that it got annoying to me at times.
Yeah, and now for what it's worth, I'm glad to see all the guys back. I do, but with my con, I want to mention some of Farva's lines, like at certain parts, not the majority of the movie. Some of what Farva was saying, I'm just saying, like, some of the things he did kind of annoyed the shit out of me in this movie. I'm not saying I didn't want him in it. I love Farva. He's funny as shit.
Yeah.
This one, I found him not so tolerable like I did with the first one.
Yeah.
On certain things he did.
I'll say that because mainly my con with that is that he does tend to repeat some jokes they said earlier in the film. A lot of time, like, okay, you pretty much...
And he drags it out. He drags it out
on some of them. So I do have a problem with that.
I'm like, oh man, you're kind of annoying me in this movie.
Yeah, but overall, though...
Oh, and this movie doesn't have much of a plot.
No, because a lot of it feels like skits throughout the entire film.
It's like 70% of the movie is just them doing the cool, funny shit, fucking with
pulling
people,
them over and shit like that,
which is cool. Even though I wish they would have done like more like crazier shit, more funnier shit. Yeah. Some of it they just did what they did in the first movie, but changed it up a little bit. Then they get to the plot like almost towards the end with the drugs, and then you already knew who the person is,
and we won't spoil it. But basically, if you've seen it, pretty much once again rehashes the same as the first one, because the first one also dealt with a smuggling type plot from Canada.
You can tell basically when they get to the plot and the writing and all that, you can tell there wasn't much money put into it. On certain things.
It pretty much was. And then basically it kind of it just kind of falls flat with a lot of humor that doesn't go anywhere in certain parts. But I'll say that overall that it was a good time, but it could have been a lot better. But I am glad to see Broken Lizard is making a comeback, because I am now wanting to see them do Potfest and maybe a Club Dread 2.
And I hear that they're possibly going to do Super Troopers 3.
Now, if they go with that prequel idea, that would be actually pretty cool.
Well, with Super Troopers 3, if they do decide and they decide to continue from 2, I want them to put more money into it, because this one felt like, they really didn't put much money. It didn't cost a lot because they were in certain locations for long periods of time. And some of it was very studio look to it, like with some of the bars, like when they kept going to these bars and strip clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can tell like the building seems the same, but they move shit around, added shit to look like it's two different buildings.
Yeah.
I do hope they can get more,
kind of like their old days.
Yeah.
I got you. But overall, though, I will say this was at least a good return. Like, it was a good return for them coming back. Kind of like it's basically comparing it like to Dumb and Dumber 2. How it's good to see the characters back, but if I didn't have my nostalgia for it, I probably wouldn't have like the same like fondness for it. Like I thought.
Like if it was original idea, that probably wouldn't have been good movie.
Yeah. But overall, I'm going to give the film an average Joe on the Film Freaks meter.
I'm going to go with the same score, average Joe, on the Film Freaks meter.
Fair enough. Yep. Well, for those of you who have also seen Super Troopers 2 and also some of Broken Lizard's other films, let us know in the comments below what you thought about them and this film. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like, subscribe, and check out our other reviews on our channel. And we'll be seeing you here in our next review. We'll see you later.
Later.